So welcome back. If you recall in the video where I restored and cleaned up this orange Game Boy Advance, I mentioned buying a backlight screen for it, which actually just came in the mail earlier today from a company called Video Game New York. Yes, Video Games New York, which is located in New York. And they sold me, or I bought this IPS backlit screen, and it comes with everything that you need. A ribbon cable with all of the chips on it, as well as what I was most concerned with, honestly, was the glass screen lens, because I had just put a glass one on here and I didn't want to have to go buy a plastic one or anything. But I can't reuse this one anyways because it is slightly different. The screen has slightly different viewing angles and a slightly different size. You can see that it's a, if I line it up, it's a little wider as well as a little taller. My assumption is it's just because the screen is bigger, but it could easily just be because it needs different viewing angles. So it comes with the ribbon cable and the glass screen protector, a second set of adhesive. This might be for the screen, although it kind of looks like it fits in an SP. I'm going to assume it's for the screen. And then the screen itself, which is honestly super small and thin. It's really small. I'm going to hold it up next to the one in here because I love seeing how technology progresses. But it looks like it'll be nice and clear. I also see that it came with some spacers for it, as well as 3 wires for soldering on brightness control to the ribbon cable, so you can control the backlight, so you're not draining your batteries when you don't need it, which is actually really nice. I don't have wire this thin. The smallest I have is some Cat 5 cable that I can kind of just pull out of a Ethernet cable. I was going to use that, but I'm glad that they included it because it saves me some time and effort of slicing my own. So the first step in getting that installed, obviously, is we need to take this apart again, so we can get the screen out and get some cables and everything plugged into it. So I'm going to get that started right now. So you'll notice that the screen ribbon cable here, and then the ribbon cable that comes with it, there are 2 different ends to the cable. And that is because there are different revisions of the Game Boy Advance that have different connectors. So the revision that I have here has I'm not even going to guess these, but I think it's 30 pins. So this would slide in here. And if you had a different revision, you would use the bigger end. So what it does is it gives you, the two options, so you don't have to buy a specific cable, which is very nice. So what I want to do is I want to just plug this in and test it, just to make sure that the screen works. So I'm going to set this cable in place. So we can set this down here. All right, so, and then you'll notice that this has the little plug on it on the bottom here. And then that plugs right into this little female port on the top of the cable here. Snaps in just like a little Lego. Trying to keep the angles okay. Now we can turn it on. And it is nice, bright, and clear. We'll take out the screen. You can take out the ribbon cable. We aren't going to need it right now. All right, and then we can set off the motherboard to the side. We don't really need to do anything with that right now. What I'm going to do, what's next is the front shell is going to require some modification. So here is the LCD screen. And here is the IPS screen. It is bigger, like I thought. and also look at the thickness of it. This has some foam on it, so look at the metal of it. Come on. So they are about the same thickness if you take away the foam, but the driver board on the back of here is obviously smaller than what's in here. And then this has a backlight in it, and it's the same thickness. It's just really cool how, you know, how different these screens are, because the technology is just improved, and I always enjoy seeing that. So I'm going to set off the old screen to the side. You can keep it for repairs down the line in case you get another Game Boy Advance, if that's your thing. In case you shatter your new shiny IPS screen and you need to replace it with something until a new one comes in, you keep the old one. Or you can trash it if you'd like. Recycle it, be sure, but trash it, do something with it. We can take out the adhesive because we need to modify the case, and this is now too small to fit our new screen. And then what we need to do, and I will need to pull up some directions and I will share them in the description, but we need to cut some of the housing around here in order to fit the new screen. I didn't buy new housing that was pre-cut because I wanted to keep the original orange, which you can see that it is just too small of a hole. It might be kind of hard to see, but I am moving the screen around. And I can't see any of the edges no matter what I do, so something is cut off. I will need to pull the directions to be sure, but I believe we need to cut down on the bottom and the right so that the screen can fully come through. So I'm gonna go grab a knife and we can get that started. Okay, so I have a pair of flush cut clippers. And based on what I've read on instruction manuals, we're going to want to cut off anything that is causing any kind of protrusion. So these bumps right here need to come off, and I believe there are some right here and right here you can trim, and you have to give a little notch in the select button. What I would advise with this is, and I've never done this, so it's the first time, but be careful with these. They are super sharp. They cut through plastic with extreme ease. Don't get your fingers caught in them. So let's cut this up. I'm reading instructions as I go, and I will link all of the various different clips and guides that I use so that you can follow along, because I'm just going to speed up this section until I'm happy with the result. Okay, so I've trimmed it up. I'm gonna go and try and just quickly test fit this to make sure that it is mostly okay. One thing I do want to look at, they included two spacers. This is the horizontal one, it goes this way. This is the vertical alignment spacer, and it fits in right underneath it, nice and snug. You can see there's a bit of wiggle room. So I'm going to just look at this real quick. We're going to try this, make sure that it works. So this was painful to do. So let's turn it on. Right, so we can see adjusted to the right, we see the border or the bezel of the screen. So if we shift it back towards the D-pad, it'll fit better. I don't want to move it while it's on because I don't want to tear anything. I think you can see why. This is the ribbon cable is just confusing to work with right now. So if we shift it towards the D-pad, we can see that it fits much better. So we want to put the spacer in on this side, like that. There are some protrusions here as well that the instructions didn't seem to cover. So we'll grab these real quick. We need to cut away just a little bit, I think from this side and maybe some from the D-pad side, but definitely not much. Okay, so I've managed to fix the fitting problem that I was having. Let me show you that. So the first problem I was having is that the horizontal spacer that they included is slightly bent, which made fitting this much harder than it needed to be. I also needed to take off a majority of the left side of it. There was originally a wall here, much like this one, that basically came out. I had to take the whole thing out. I also had to take away, I'd say 85–90% of the left trigger's bracket, basically, leaving basically just a tiny sliver so that I could still grip it and spring, but enough gone that the screen could fit flush. More work than it needed to be, about an extra half hour of cutting, but it works now. It probably would have been easier if this wasn't as bent as it is. Put the screen adhesive on so that we can make sure the screen stays in place. So now, before we put the screen in, let us solder the brightness controls. Plug the screen cable in, fold it down to basically where it would be, and you will see, if it doesn't want to fight against me, there are solder pads on the ribbon cable for doing this, an LR select and a ground. I believe the ground isn't needed, just LR and select. So I will take the 3 wires that they included in the packaging, and they will be soldered to the ribbon cable and then to the respective pads on the motherboard. Doing this stuff that is so small, it's a little challenging, especially to get on camera while doing it at the same time. But I tinned the soldering iron after I heated up, and then tinned the 2 ends of all 3 wires. It should make it easier. Okay, so before we solder these to the board, we actually want to put the screen in place in the front housing. So one thing I have seen is that, and know from experience, is that if you take off the adhesive, then put the screen in place. The screen will not come out of the housing without you breaking the screen. This adhesive is just too strong. So what I think I'm going to do is cut a small amount here for the, for the vertical spacer, so that that can be held in place. Now this seems bent too. Like so, and then I'm going to do the same over here. For the horizontal spacer. Let me make sure that I put it in a position that won't affect it since it's bent. Okay. So then what I'm going to do, before I take this off, is I'm going to remove just some of the adhesive. What I'm hoping this is going to do is that when I put the screen down in a minute, should I ever need to take the screen out in the future, it stands a greater chance of coming out in one piece and not shattering with me trying to take it out. Like so. Some stuff we'll need to clean later. Okay, maybe it needs a little more adhesive freed up. All right, perfect. So now comes this part I've not really been looking forward to. The cable needs to go plugged in, but I also need to make sure that I bend it properly, as this smaller connector needs to be the one that folds around up top. So I'm basically going to be doing this to it. One thing I saw is take a piece of the middle section that we have, about yay big. We can stick it down right above the cable. About here. What we can do with that is it's going to keep this insulated since I don't feel any plastic on it, but it's also going to keep the ribbon cable in place as well. So let's plug this in. And we can peel this off. And then just press lightly on it. that should keep it all in place. So now we can go and solder in the 3 wires for brightness control. And they are labeled from what would be top to bottom, L, R, and select. So we want to connect, we will use TP2 as our select, TP9 is left, and then TP8 here is right. So we can tin those first. Sorry if I'm hitting the camera. Okay. That gives us a folding distance. Move this in the frame. So this one wire should be L. It is important to remember your wiring layout so that things don't get kinked or stuck anywhere as you go about wiring these together. Thankfully though, this wire that they provided is so thin that I'm not terribly worried about if it gets kinked or not, as it should still work. Okay, let's make sure that those are lined up properly. Top to bottom is select RL, oops, sorry, select RL, select RL. Okay, cool. So that should be it. We just need to fold it up and make sure that nothing is in the way before we turn it back on. Having some line-up error, misalignments with the speaker. Okay. That feels good. I'm going to screw this down to help keep the board in place while we flip this over and test it. I'm screwing the motherboard back in enough to make sure that it's secured in place, but not enough now that any of the new components that we've installed run the risk of breaking or otherwise being pressed in a way that they won't function. Okay. All the buttons feel good. Let's pop some batteries in. Put a game in. All right, let's try turning it on. The D-pad is a little off, but it's got some spring rates, so when I screw it together, I think it should be okay. Start and select work. A and B work. Let's try. I know I don't have the triggers in, but. All right, and then the brightness. I should fix that, hold on. Hold on, select. It's dim. And brightness adjustment. Sorry, the focus is off, isn't it? It's hard to get it to focus, I'm sorry. But it is dimming. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 levels of brightness. And I wish the camera would pick it up, but it is super bright. It's very nice. Okay. Let's clean off the screen. I want to make sure this is very clean because I don't want to have to take this apart again. Okay, so I've given it a good clean. Unfortunately, as I was pressing into it, the screen pushed in, presumably because I didn't give it any adhesive on this side, and it is just a tad noticeable when you're playing it from, you know, a playing angle. I know the camera's not set up right to get that, but looking at it, I can see it. So what I want to do, prevent any other fingerprints from getting on it and any dust, we're going to put the lens on it for now. And then I'm going to take it back apart and just push the screen in. I won't film the whole disassembly process again, but I will show me cutting the foam again so that it stays in place. Okay, so obviously this isn't the right size lens for some reason. It's too short up here, too wide on the bottom, and too short on the right side. I don't know why it's like that. For whatever reason, it's like that. And I mean, I can try and use the original glass screen, but I need to take this one off. I need to take it apart anyways to fix the leveling issue. So we'll see what I can do about that. And so it doesn't look like there's much adhesive that I can give it. I can give it some up here and down here. But like I said, I want to see, I want to see if I can replace this with the old one since it's not the right size. I want to see how well the old glass screen lens that I had fits, because the screen fits in the housing for it now. Let's put some batteries in. So here is the old one. I put it on the screen in an effort to keep it safe because I didn't think I'd need it again. And it's okay. So now I don't want to... So looking at it, it is a little hard to see. I don't suppose I could press the button with this. No. So we aligned it with the spacers that were included, and I don't see any real cutoff. So I'm okay with using the old lens. It's going to need cleaning because I got some fingerprints on it with taking it apart. But I'd rather have this fit and not show any of the shell underneath it. And maybe miss a few pixels on any side, as opposed to having, as opposed to seeing them and using a lens that's too big. So surprise, I was wrong, and I don't like having the smaller glass lens on it because it cuts off way more of the screen than I initially thought. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but it cut off way more than I thought it would. So I'm going to replace it with the glass screen that came with it, and I will just cut off the orange bezel that we can see here because it cut off a lot more of the screen than I thought, and I don't want to deal with that. So I went through and I marked out basically what I think needs to be cut out and trimmed in order to fit the screen properly. So I'm going to pop the lens out and then take my flush cut clippers again and then just cut this out and then reassemble the whole thing, and we should be good. I guess it was good of me to not use the whole adhesive because I definitely needed to take the screen out again. All right, let's get cutting. So we can see that we have opened up more of the screen showing. I do need to kick out a little bit more on the left side here. I'm going to do that real quick, and then we should be able to put it back together and then put the screen lens on, and then it's going to cover up this unfortunate, hideous mess. Okay, so as we can see now, the new glass lens is covering it. There is a bit of an exception here at the top. Sure, I'll try and trim this down a bit more up here. We can see it is covering everything that we cut, so we don't have to really worry about hiding it. I'm going to pop this out one more time, clip off this little orange section under here under the adhesive, and then we can put the screen back in, make sure it looks decent, and then pop this on, and then we can clean up and pack all this back up together. We have cleared off a pretty decent amount of the border around the screen. Let me pop in back just to see what it looks like. Okay, so we can see some of the bezel around the screen, but I believe that once we put on the glass lens, that should clear right up. Just making sure that there's nothing on the screen that I won't be able to clean off. Okay, we can slip this on. And I think it looks really good. There's a small speck of dust right here from clipping that I can take out real quick. But I like it. It definitely looks, it looks stock. I'm glad that the glass cover here hides the cuts we had to make. But now we get the full screen real estate visible without too much of a hassle. So let me get rid of that speck of dust, and then we can put this back together and give it one final test. So it's back together. Move this stuff off my camera. We'll pop in some batteries, put in the game, and we can see how it finally looks with everything on it, as it should be. Give it the peel. So wipe down. It already looks a lot better than I originally had it with the stock glass lens. I was missing about this much of the screen. The P was cut off. Let's see if I can align it. It was cut off like this. The bottom was cut off, and almost even worse at like maybe 2 or 3 pixels worth. It was very noticeable, and I was not happy with it. But I took the time and went back. Now it looks better. Everything still works. So, you know, do it right, as best as you can. It'll turn out fine. But yeah, the whole point of this little addendum was that I wanted to fix that. So thank you for sticking through for the next few minutes, even though we've already seen this before. But thank you. I hope you enjoyed it again. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, you know, come by next time.